So today's plan, we did the grading conferences last time. If you want your grade conference sheet, you can ask me after class, and I'll give it to you. You just have to sign it real quick, and then cut off the top part, and you can have it, and I'll keep the bottom part with the signature. But I think I already everybody's grades were on there, right? I didn't say there was any grades that was missing, like anything that I had not included when I met with any of you. Okay, cool. So, I guess I don't really have anything to add then. I mean, I guess. Do you have any questions about anything before we get to talking about what we're talking about today? So my main goal is just to get you kind of started on the research thing. That's the main goal. But I don't know how much we've already covered. And I think in one class we literally haven't covered anything. I don't know how much we covered in here. Like, do you remember like what we covered in terms of like when I assigned the assignment? Did I just kind of read over the assignment? That's really all we did.
You kind of told us, yeah, you did that. I mean, you told us what was going on.
That's about it.
Timelines, like you said that our layout is due next week, and then our third essay, and then our research paper is due the week after that. And then you talked about not working on it during Thanksgiving break.
Okay. So, well, no, that still can't be right. This, there we go. I don't know why it took so long to find it. Let's log in as Magnus Baraka here. Go to 1302, assignments, the planning for the research paper. Okay, now did we cover, I'm pretty sure I covered this and I said it, but I don't know if we talked a lot about why, but the picking your topic is going to be the hardest thing that you do. Like, probably more so than even writing the paper, finding the research, is just coming up with a topic that'll work. And I say that, but some people, it's like it comes to you like this. It's not a big deal. You think, okay, story, issue, no big deal. Some of you have problems picking things that aren't just obvious. Like I had a student mention in a class, they said that, well, I don't know what you mean by not obvious, because did I mention that to y'all that I wanted you to pick something that just wasn't obvious, like hitting the nail on the head? I think the example I used down here is, I don't want you to pick something like, well, dadgummit, where is it? Oh, it's in the research paper section. Like, I don't want you to talk about the relationship between Story of an Hour and modern day feminism, or Battle Royal and racism against African Americans. I mean, the whole subject of the story in Battle Royal is racism against African Americans. So if you try to compare Battle Royal, the story, with racism against African Americans in 2018, I mean, that's literally the same topic, just with a different year. So I don't want you to make it a one-to-one relationship where literally the story and the real-world issue are the same. I want it to be something different. And a student mentioned, well, but it's the same with even the example story that you gave us with, I told them about, you remember that story, the birthmark I told y'all about? That we didn't read, but it was about the girl who had the birthmark on her face, like the hand, and then we read, I think the census analysis essay was over it. But she ends up having the husband tries to remove the birthmark on her from her face, and it ends up getting her killed. Well, when I mentioned the possibility for them, I said, well, a lot of students in that 1302 class, they chose birthmark as their story, and they chose cosmetic surgery these days, like the prevalence of, I guess, pervasive and sometimes dangerous cosmetic surgery as relating to that story. And then I had those students the very next class, they said, well, now I don't understand why you said that that's okay, and something like Battle Royal and racism against African Americans is not okay when they sound the same. But there's subtle differences there. One story is about like a guy trying to see what is scientifically possible, by removing the birthmark of his wife, and that's where the concentration is. Where cosmetic surgery these days is all about people not finding enough sense of self-worth and modifying their bodies to fit the views and expectations of others. And she does do that in the story, the wife does. She allows her husband to try to change her. But I mean, I think that the lesson there is that she ends up dying in the story. But you wouldn't just say the birthmark. I mean, if you were to explain to somebody that story, they say, well, what is it? Oh, it's about a cosmetic surgery gone wrong. Because that's not what it's about. It's about so much more than that. It's about a completely different subject, and like he's doing it because of what he thinks might be scientifically possible. She's doing like literally a cosmetic surgery. So in those scenarios, they're two completely different scenarios. They just kind of work the same. And that's kind of how I want you. So you couldn't do battle royal against and racism against African Americans in the modern day. You could, however, do some scenario that's specific that involves African Americans today or some other race that involves some type of racism that functions in a way that takes advantage of those people or disregards their humanity, without just saying this big blanket term, racism against African Americans. Can anybody think of a scenario that involves, I don't know, race issues where somebody's being disrespected or not valued, or say something out loud is what I mean. I just want to hear that. I'm seeing a lot of people go, yes, I can think of one. like, what is it? Is what I'm asking. Think about the things your daddy says is not actually happening, or they're just blowing it out of proportion. If you're having trouble thinking of something. They're just whining. You ever heard of me? No? Maybe I'm making this harder. Maybe y'all don't have dads to do that. Okay. No.
So it's just
He
like
says,
discrimination in general?
no, see, that's what I'm trying to get away from. Not in general.
Just some sort of specific thing that ties to it.
Yes. Not so specific that it only applies to one person, but
Wow.
a specific type of situation.
I guess interracial marriages? Because like a lot of people don't like that. A lot of parents, I should say.
Yeah, you could say like the stigma against interracial marriage, if there is one. I mean, I guess there must be.
There is.
Okay. And I can think of, some other scenarios, like I couldn't narrow it down specifically to that lady who shot that guy in his apartment. That's too specific. While there is some controversy there, it's too specific because that's not happening in every single instance of police brutality against African Americans. And in fact, you wouldn't even necessarily consider that a blanket situation of police brutality, because she wasn't technically on her shift and all kinds of little things about that. But maybe, I guess you could consider essentially what the Black Lives Matter movement is about. It's about that idea of police brutality against African Americans, right? So Black Lives Matter would be a good one because it covers a lot of people. It involves racism as an issue and the devaluation of a people and a culture. But it's not just as simple as Black Lives Matter is not a movement purely just against racism. It's about a specific scenario involving the systematic disrespect of and devaluation of life of African Americans by police officers specifically in the modern day. Yeah. It's not just saying racism. Or you could go to a different race. Go with the wall, the Trumpian wall. Is it here yet? Have we started it? We haven't started it? I know there's been a lot of money paid for.
You can't get funded. Just my dad freaks
Well, he's got some funding. He's got funding at least to do some research on it, because I think there's been some preliminary estimates and things and surveys I think they do with little tripods. People got tripods that come. You ever seen those guys out with tripods, little camera things that are orange? I think they're surveying the land and seeing like what they got to know
Oh,
to
yeah.
do the stuff. What? It might be. It could be. I always thought that those are like surveyors, and I think that one of the things that they do is they are checking the level of the ground, whether or not it's used specifically for purposes of leveling. I mean, I guess it might be. Yeah. I don't know. To be that honest, I think I just realized I know nothing about what those things do. I just heard that they're using land surveys, but I don't even know what that even means. If anybody knows, let us know. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be racism against African Americans. It doesn't even really have to be racism. If you could somehow find a way to relate Battle Royal to the
Some sort of discrimination?
huh?
Some sort of discrimination?
I'm not no, because look, I mean, the example that I provide, like the sample paper is about something that kind of makes sense. Hypocrisy in two different scenarios: Westboro Baptist Church and the characters in the story of Ministers Blackfield and the way that they view the preacher. But my sample that I made up was Willie Loman, some dude who can't move up in his company, and the government's view of the right to privacy for Americans, or the government's view of like spying. So those are two completely different scenarios. I mean, I could relate Battle Royal and the racism there to the resistance of the population to automatic self-driving cars somehow. It doesn't have to be, in fact, I prefer it not be just a one-to-one super easy relationship. I get a lot of papers on soldiers home and PTSD. And it's one of the most dangerous topics to write about, because while some people are able to somehow find a way to contextualize it specifically for today, a lot of people end up accidentally just trying to diagnose the character from the story with PTSD. In that case, when you're trying to diagnose the character of the story with PTSD, you end up getting like a 50 on the paper because you're not doing it right. But when you're trying to contextualize his PTSD and the way his family treats him with some way that people treat their families that are in the military service today, that's completely different, then it works. But if it's just a one-to-one relationship where it's the exact same thing, it doesn't work. So that's why this becomes like the hardest part of the assignment. A little side note that I want to make. If you're ever going to start a movement, work really hard on the name. Okay? I'm going to be honest with you. Black Lives Matter is a terrible name. If any of you really love that name, no offense. It's not good. Very good name for a movement. Me Too. Does anybody know why Black Lives Matter is a terrible name?
Being biased?
Yes. What was the first thing people said when it was Black Lives Matter and it was about cops and Black Lives? Yeah, which became known as what? Blue Lives Matter. And other people started saying also what? All Lives Matter. It's because the name Black Lives Matter opened it up to all those possible counter protests. Me Too. It's about women, right?
No.
Exactly. You can make it about everybody. It started as a result of sexual harassment in various types of workplaces and sexual assault against women specifically. But the universal applicability of a phrase like Me Too means anybody can say, I'm the me.
Actually, write that down.
Oh, yeah, see, I mean, you could do it. But like, Me Too, great name. Black Lives Matter, not so great name. Not because it has the name black in it, but just because it was too specific. You know? I feel like there's another one 2 years ago. I had the same issue, but I can't remember what it was. Many years ago. And somebody came up with like an alternate hashtag. Damn it. Huh?
Alternate hashtag for what?
I don't know. It was like pre-hashtag days, so I'm just coming up. I just said the word hashtag. We didn't have them back then. It was like something else. I was just thinking of something really funny. If for example, like post 9/11, we're giving up all these freedoms and stuff. Did I talk to y'all about civil asset forfeiture? Did I ever mention that to you guys? So if you could somehow find a way to relate this would be a really cool paper to any story we've written. So, are any of y'all distrustful of banks?
Distrustful?
Yeah, distrustful of banks. So you prefer to hold cash on you than trust a bank with it? I mean, think about it in your head, because this is not a class of hand raisers. So like think about I like to keep the cash, in like a safe or something that's far safer. I got my gun on top of the safe. Somebody comes near my safe, shoot them. Feel much safer about this than the bank. Well, post 9/11, they were worried that there would be terrorists in our midst, and they would try to attack us from within. So one of the things they passed was the Patriot Act, and within the Patriot Act was this thing where you could essentially, if you suspect something as being possibly used for a crime, you could hold on to it to make sure it didn't get used for that crime. So it essentially kind of not really wiped out, but subverted the law that said that if you're going to keep evidence or take someone's property, you have to implement it in a crime, and if you can't, then you have to return it. Because you can't just hold on to evidence indefinitely when nobody's being charged. Strangely enough, it ended up not catching a whole lot of terrorists. I don't know exactly how many. But it does mean that, let's say, for example, you're going to go make a down payment on a house, a very small house, so it's like 20 grand. You've been saving up 20 grand in cash over the course of 3 or 4 years. In fact, let's make it 30 grand, because you just got a nice refund check or something, and so 30 grand, that's not so bad. That's like what? If it was a 20% down payment, you could buy a $150,000 house. You still have to get the loan from the bank, because nobody can save up $150,000 in cash on their own, right? It's hard. But you take your $30,000 in cash, you've got in a briefcase, got your gun with you, and your concealed carry license because you're responsible, and you're driving. You stop at a stop sign. You stop. You're pretty sure you stopped. But officer said, it was a rolling stop. I mean, what are you going to do? Maybe you have a dash cam, maybe you don't. You could always petition to get the police's body cam footage if you needed to, or their dash footage, you think. And the cop says, hey man, what you doing? Just let you know, officer, concealed carry license. Cool. Where are you headed today? Actually headed to the bank. Gonna make a down payment on a house. Pretty excited about it. Oh really? What you got there in the briefcase? That's the down payment. It is? Yeah. Is it in cash? Yeah. It's kind of suspicious. Where'd you get all that cash? I've been saving it up over the course of 3 years. You sure you're not going to go commit a crime, sir? Buy some drugs? No, sir. I'm just going to go to the bank. I have an appointment. Sir, I'm not 100% sure this is true. This is very suspicious. You're walking around with $30,000 in cash. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to confiscate this cash. We're going to put it in the evidence locker. What? No, it's my cash. We're going to confiscate it. And they take your cash. And the way civil asset forfeiture works is you have about a month to get it back.
Can they do that though?
Oh yeah, totally legal.
Why?
Patriot Act.
They can just take your money?
Some terrorists flew a couple of airplanes into a building one time, and now you've given up your freedoms on your property. Yay. So they take your cash, and it goes to the evidence locker. And it's very hard and expensive process to get it back. The lawyer it's going to cost you is probably about $5 grand. And the cost to bring the lawsuit and get, so you'll get back the $1,000 maybe, but it's going to be about $5,000 short because you'll have to pay the lawyer. And for some reason, I guess because it's a city prosecutor that's prosecuting all these cases, the judges generally don't honor court fees and court costs, and you're still out about $5 grand no matter what. Which means that in scenarios where it's a large amount of cash, you probably will get it back. But if it's like a little items and things or a small amount of cash, it's not even always worth it. Other than just the principle of it, you may end up actually paying more to try to get it back than you would have lost originally. And what generally happens is if somebody doesn't come and claim that within a month, does anybody know where that goes if it's not claimed? It goes into somebody's, that cash becomes liquidated and goes into somebody's funds. Do you know what governmental entity's funds it goes into?
Police.
Whatever police department grabbed it.
Which makes it to where they don't really much bother giving it back.
Not really. Because if it goes into your funds, and imagine too, we have self-driving cars coming up, guys. That's going to be a thing. What are they? How are they going to replace all that ticket money they've been bringing in? Huh? Cars aren't going to speed on their own. They speed because people are stupid and texting or drinking or.
But with this,
the goal of police work is supposed to be what? To reduce crime, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a perfect society, the cops don't do anything, right? The cops are just there, and the very nature of the cops themselves keeps people from doing bad things. Cops should pray that they never have to arrest anybody or put anybody in jail or have to stop anybody, because then it's a perfect society. But what happens when you don't need cops anymore? You don't have money bringing in from the cops.
You have a degree to get another job.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That reminds me of a story.
You
It's
shouldn't-
called like the end of the sidewalk or something like that, where this guy is out walking, but everybody else is inside their houses watching TV.
Uh-huh.
But this automated police car arrests him and puts him in jail because the police system is automated.
That's kind of funny.
I don't think anyone should become a cop without having a backup plan.
Well, good luck with that. You know, people get 2 degrees at the same time.
I mean, you can go to the police academy and not have a degree to become a cop. So I feel like, I don't
Well,
know,
I mean-
if you're gonna be a cop, you
Well-
should have a backup plan just because
Yeah, this
anything could happen.
does get to a side issue though. But yeah, so the idea too is, and actually, if you think it doesn't happen to, I mean, granted, this is of course anecdotal, and you'll have to kind of trust me on this, but I have talked to somebody here who works here, and it's not necessarily you get stopped and pulled over and they take your stuff. This person came home one day and somebody had broke into their house and stole some stuff. And they called the cops and they said, "Oh, yeah, we found that person. We confiscated the stuff. Awesome." And then they called the police and they said, "How do we get it back?" And they said, "Well, you just call and then we'll talk to this people." Okay, so they talked to the people and they said, "Well, yeah, now it was part of a crime, so it's evidence." And they kept calling back and saying, "Can we get our stuff back? Can we get our stuff back?" Well, and then one time they called back, "Oh, it's gone. We don't know where it is." It had been sold at auction, and the cash was put into the police fund. So they're still selling to try to get the money. They're still suing to try to get the money back. But again, it was jewelry that was very personal. It wasn't. They wanted the cash. It was that they wanted the jewelry itself. And now that jewelry's been sold somewhere. And so that's not even a scenario where you've done anything wrong or suspicious. Somebody else did, but you're having to pay the price for it. And this is all a result of civil asset forfeiture. And what's the motivation? I mean, there's a lot of people out there, and I'd say the vast majority of people out there are good cops. But there's got to be some bad cops out there who go, "Hey, this just goes right back into our police funds." So, I mean, what's the motivation for us to stop? Who's going to stop their own funding stream, their revenue stream? It's a very difficult decision to make. And technically it's legal right now, so there's some states that have outlawed it. Not all of them. But I'm sure you can find a way to relate that to something. So does civil asset forfeiture, am I right in assuming that it's the most terrifying thing you've never heard of until today? That somebody can just look at you and say, "Hey, that's suspicious. Take your crap and now it's theirs." Just in case. That's going to be the hard thing, is coming up with the stuff. Right? Now from here, I have this checklist that's kind of supposed to help you, I guess, bring balance to the stuff you need to submit. So I got it in PDF form here. I do have some guidelines for the types of sources you need to be looking for once you've thought of an event. There are times, like after class, like if you want to come after class, you want to ask me about an event, that's fine, before you go through all the trouble of submitting it. And I've had some students before too, they'll submit just the thesis. They'll say, hey, do you think this idea would work? And they won't do any of the sources yet, because they just want to know if their thesis will work before they've gone through the trouble of looking up all the research. And that's fine too. I mean, I give you a really low grade on it, because I do like 5 points for the works cited, and I do 5 points for the thesis when I'm doing the grading, and you want to get all that 10 points. So I may just be like, okay, these first 5 points, they're gone. So let me just look at the thesis. And if I think the thesis works great, I might give you a 5 and say, hey, the thesis works great, now I need the sources. And you say, all right, cool. But that can save you a lot of effort, just not doing the works cited the first time. Just keep in mind that I do have, it's next weekend that I start grading the plannings. And so if I might not get to y'all's immediately, I mean, you might be the last one I get to, and if all you've done is submit a thesis, you may have to wait yet another weekend till I approve that thesis with the sources. So, and that's if you get it right the first time. I mean, I'll try to keep my eye on it so that I'm grading them really fast and as they come in, because they're a lot easier to grade. They're simpler to grade than most things. But still, I mean, it's going to take some time. Why is my phone still open? I was wondering, it's so hot. I guess a long time ago, and I looked up a word. Okay, my phone's going crazy and like showing me every notification one after the other. Why is it unlocked? It's really hot, like it's been on, but now it's showing the notifications for some reason. I don't know. Okay. So it says absolute necessities here on the research. Got to have 6 sources in total. What are those 6 sources? Why 6? Why not 5? I thought we said 5. Literature book, that's right. You got to have the source itself. 5 secondary sources, 1 primary source. Primary source meaning the very thing we're writing about. In most areas of life, like when y'all did research papers for 1301, you did not have a primary source. Depending on if your teacher made you write your research over the novel. But in my class, we didn't. So there's no way of having a primary research source in things like abortion. Because, I mean, you're not going to go find the abortion and then have it like on the paper. Like, I mean, it's an event. I mean, it's an idea. Whereas in this case, we have an actual story we're writing about. We can make that a primary source. So we include that textbook. Then we've got the 5 articles. So how do we do those 5 articles? First of all, of course, no Spark Notes, no Cliff Notes, no Schmoop. That's another thing. No, there's another one too. InNotes, is that what it's called? Was it eNotes.com? I got all kinds of notes websites now. No Wikipedia.com, no About.com, no Ask.com. Now Yahoo Answers, Quora, that kind of stuff. I really do prefer that if you find the articles from the databases, because Google searches, they have their, do I have that down below? Yeah. I prefer all sources be from the college databases. Because, like I was showing the class earlier, that if I go to, in fact, it's probably just easier if I do this. Let's make a window here, and if I type, let's say I was doing a topic like vaccines cause autism. I mean, I've yet to figure out exactly if we'll find bad answers on the internet, on Google, but it still happens. So I'm getting stuff like history of vaccines or publichealth.org or, you know, Wikipedia of autism, I'm sure. WebMD. Those aren't real, like, verifiable sources. But I was talking to students this morning about, like, how do you even find sources that say that autism is caused by vaccines? Like, I was having trouble even finding anything that would say that. Vaccines what was I think the way I figured out to do it was I even tried to do like vaccines killed my baby. Still couldn't do it. It was like no, 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 no. But I finally figured out what to do. Type vaccines killed my baby, Yahoo Answers. I don't want to get my baby vaccinated. Yahoo Answers. I'm pregnant. I want to vaccinate. I was just looking at outside opinions. I don't want to do it because I wouldn't personally get a vaccine no matter what. And I was like, this is the one I was looking for. But still, I wonder how do people find these answers? Because I always have students like, and I did my research. Where? Because I really had to search hard to find this answer that I was looking for. I mean, we got the whole kit and caboodle here, guys. We got, if I wouldn't get one, why would I have somebody get one? A dog got a vaccine one time and got something. A 14-year-old girl turned deaf blind with severe brain damage. We got pump. We got the word pump, full of chemicals. We got all the greatest hits. And if you thought we were missing one of the greatest hits, we're not. It's right here. Yeah. No, not that greatest hits. Different greatest hits. I don't trust the government. What? They're all there, guys. It's like the playlist from YouTube of. It's phenomenal. Oh yeah, and she said something about, I've heard they cause autism. Where's the autism thing? Oh no, she didn't even include that. That's funny. So she missed like the main song on the album, but she still got most of the greatest hits. I mean, Google's just not the best place to go for valid research, if you can avoid it. I really do want 5 articles to be written by different named authors. And instead of me going through and like talking to you about these things from this point on, I think what I'll do is I'll just actually submit it so you can see what that would look like. And I may actually include this as a sample here. I might like turn it into an image and then include this as a sample. So let's say for a second that I open up the PDF for this. 743 is the same assignment? Yeah, it is. So let's just scroll down here, bottom. Let's grab the works cited, because I know I got to do a works cited, right? Right? Yes, I do. Good call. And we'll get rid of this one. We don't need this. Let's do a merge paste. No. Okay, so PDF's not going to work out. Let's do the Word file. That's going to be easier. Is this love that I'm feeling? No, it's not. Documents. What do we got? Let's do an English 1301, because I already have an English 1301 class. Let's do English 1302, Fall 2018. Let's make us a research paper folder. Good place to start. And let's have us a file. Yeah, let's get like the main assignment. We'll put it here. I'll open this up, see what this bad boy has to offer. That's right. It's a bad boy. It's not a bad boy, it's just a paper. Copy this works cited page, and in my new document, we're going to paste it. Bingo. So here we have works cited, have all this material. We're good to go. I probably want to go ahead and have my thesis down below, just to make sure that I have it somewhere besides just on the, because if I submit it in the comments box and something goes wrong and I accidentally hit backspace before I submit and it's just gone and I typed the whole thing there, like that's going to be a nightmare. I need to make sure I've got a backup of it somewhere else. So in this case, Hawthorne's portrayal of typical townsfolk. That sentence there we talked about was the thesis. I'll just type in, oh no, I want the whole document to be Times New Roman. Let's do this. Or apparently it supposedly is, it's just not here. Thesis. Why does it say 11? Come on. Come on. Bruh. Bruh. Oh, why is, okay, sure. Let's make it single space. I don't want it to look the same as the other stuff. Let's see. Nearly identical protests. Both claim are found level of morality. Only notice was either surround the sin never themselves. Why does he? In fact, I gave this guy a nice grade on the thing, but it should honestly not be a semicolon. It should be a comma. I was submitting this myself. God, I love this computer. Can you feel it, guys? Can you feel how good it is? Just, you feel that?
Yeah.
Use your telepathy. Feel how I feel. You feel it? It's so solid. This is good. Just knows what it is. It's all packed in there. It's like,
It's a gaming.
you know how you ever like pick somebody up? Somebody ever done that before? You lift a person's body. You know, you can lift one person up who's like, you know, your brother, and he likes snacks, and you pick him up, and there's kind of some movement there because his weight's kind of. Versus if you pick somebody up who's like, you know, there's always like that one like skinny cross country kid in high school. There's no fat on him because he's just pure muscle and ligaments. And just cross country. You pick that kid up, there's no movement anywhere. It's just like it's pure solid. Everything in there is what it's supposed to be and nothing else. There's no space in that body for extra stuff. It's all gone. He runs all of his space off. That's how this computer feels. It's like pure muscle. There's no air in there.
You spent $2,000 on it.
You don't know how much I spent.
You said it was more than the last one.
That is true. Anyways, I'm sorry, I had a little love fest with my computer. So I have the thesis here. I got the works cited there. And now I'm going to submit it. I think I've done enough, so I'm going to go ahead and submit. Save it. Let's do the folder I was just in. Let's call it Research Paper Planning Attempt 1, because I really don't know. You don't have to do that. I'm going to do that. That's what I would do, because I'd be like, okay, it's my first attempts. If Nichols doesn't like it, then I'll do attempt 2, attempt 3, so forth. So on and so forth. So I save it. I'm not going to close it, though, in case I got to copy paste my thesis. I'm just going to click here, planning. Scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. Browse my computer. No, not the sex ed paper. Not all those pictures of spam. There we go. There we go. Planning. Check the box. Now you go copy my thesis. Where is that? Down here? Copy. Paste. Paste. And I can, or it doesn't matter if I have the word thesis at the front. Some people put the word thesis, some people don't. Like, I'm fine with just this. There are some guidelines to make sure that you have on this to include in your thesis in order to make it useful. I forgot to show this to the last 2 classes. Now I realize that and I feel bad, but you're about to see. A lot of windows.
You know how you know you have a good computer?
When I can do all that crap and it's still moving.
Windows open and your laptop's not crashing.
Yeah.
Do that like screech.
And the sad thing is I mostly just use it for desktop applications. Like I use it like it's a work computer. I don't use it like, I just don't want to have to close things. Like this is the 90s. Why should we have to close things? Or the 2018. That's not the end button anymore. I'm so used to my old computer. Huh? Oh no, not numlock off. Okay, there we go. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Not this one. Where's the searching for a research paper topic? Bingo, Ringo. Let's do it. Green. No. End. There's a certain like set of son of duplicate. I need to show the same on the recording as it does for you guys. So you don't have to color code this. Notice the one I pasted into the blackboard is not color coded. But the color coding I've done for you to kind of show you all the things it has to include. So number one, it's got to include both of these two things, the story and the real world issue. And I've put those in blue to show you. So see, it talks about both Ministers Blackvale and Westboro Baptist Church. It's got to include the point you're trying to prove, which usually includes in fact, I should almost add the human issue between the two, because there's some problem of human interaction that's going to be present. Like I told you, I don't really want you doing things that are scientific, that don't involve people at all. Because, I mean, what do you do to fix that? Like if you say battle royal and, the racism against the main character versus hurricanes and their racism against land. I mean, like, what is that gonna?
That doesn't even make any sense.
It doesn't. I know they don't have a mind. They don't think. A hurricane got a hurricane, Or no, it's hurricane's gonna hurricane. Isn't that right? Is that how you'd say it? Hurricane's gonna hurricane. Nobody's acting like they've heard this blank gonna blank thing ever before in their lives. Never heard it?
You mean like dogs will be dogs?
Is that already like not something people say? What?
Is it like something like dogs will be dogs?
No, it's not that exact phrase. It's like
Haters gonna hate.
haters gonna hate. There you go. It's just you switch out the words and the outside. Haters gonna hate. Lovers gonna love. I do not want none of the above. That's actually a Chappelle joke, but I can't continue because it gets rather graphic. In this case, it's hypocritical. So hypocrisy is the broad issue that's a problem in both of those scenarios. Westboro Baptist Church, Ministers Blackvale. Then the point you're trying to prove about them, so in what way they're similar, in what way looking at these two matters. See the birds?
Birds.
The birds. Hawthorne's portrayal of them is nearly identical to the others in a sense that they both claim a profound level of morality yet only notice when others around them commit sin, never themselves. In many cases, the green part that you all need to have, which is the brief reason the claim is true, why it's true, or why it's necessary to even look at this, is generally speaking because this is an important issue that needs to be addressed in the world today. If I can't tell why you're even looking at it, for example, if you were to propose to me the idea that, let's see, what would be the best story to relate to whether or not college athletes should be paid? Being taken advantage of when they're not. Battle Royal. That works out perfect, doesn't it? He shows up, they're like, do our little dance, fight people, then we'll give you your scholarship. In fact, that's almost like exactly the scenario. So should college athletes be paid? Maybe it's just because it's a sport. I don't care about sports issues. I really just, and generally I don't. Like college athletes not being paid isn't something that really bothers me that much. You may find it to be an issue. That's probably just the one you don't do. I guess the one I'm thinking of is, no, what's another? Give me a sports controversy that's not related to freedom of speech or equal pay. Do y'all know of one? I'm not talking because freedom of speech issues, the anthem protests, that's fine.
Like Kaepernick.
Yeah, Kaepernick thing would work. But it needs to be framed in general, not like should Kaepernick be allowed to protest, but anybody be allowed to protest.
Being the whole NFL.
Yeah.
They expanded. Well, there's like.
What's something that literally doesn't matter if people feel like it's a controversy? Oh, perfect. Ow, my ring is hard. Golly. Should we have a playoff system in the college football?
Should we have playoffs?
Playoff system. Like that works like the NFL, where it's like elimination playoffs. So I know a lot of people are really pissed off about that. They hate the bowl system. They said the bowl system is really bad because it's just some weird system they have, picks teams at random that might not even be the ones with the best records, and they're the big bowl game.
I mean, college teams are ranked.
They're ranked, but it doesn't work like the NFL does it, where it's like
you have to have a certain.
Or people in a certain division, and you're the best in your divisions, and the divisions go against each other, then the conference goes against each other, and then it's the Super Bowl.
It's probably because there's way more
college football teams than there are NFL teams.
Oh, how many are there really? Like a couple hundred?
How many are in Texas alone? Like 4, 5?
We're big.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. California is huge. So if you're trying to do a playoff system for college football teams when there's way more than there are.
What's the
NFL teams,
problem?
it's
That's
gonna take
just
forever.
more college football.
Yeah, but that's more money that has to be put towards that.
Yeah, it's more money made.
And football team, I guess.
This is far more I wanted to go into
Yeah,
this.
I'm just like, because you're talking NFL teams, there's what?
Not in terms of time, just
There's 32 of them.
my complete and total lack of
Don't even
care.
that much.
Like, I mean, but when you think about it, does this even matter?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
But that's what you're saying. Like,
We could put a lot of thought into it, but I don't know, like a playoff system in the NCAA, I don't, it doesn't really matter that much. But what can we relate it to? Playoff, allowing to display your prowess in a way that matters, not PTS, not the Soldiers Home, not Ken Liu, not. I don't know. Do we have a story where somebody's like overcoming adversity or wants to be the best or? Not really. Maybe I just generally don't find that to be an important thing. I don't know. If you could find a way to relate it to a story, I still wouldn't care. That's the thing, as I'm saying. There's got to be some implication of why this is even important to look at. So hurricanes, there ain't nothing we can do to stop a hurricane. Other than if it was somehow you relate it to climate change, people not doing enough about it. But then that becomes a human issue, right?
yeah.
Playoff system, you're going to argue just like over whether or not the best man's the one making it to the top with the other best man. I mean, I'm sorry, best person. Although all the football players are men on the teams. There is female football, it's just not as, I think, popular. Not as many people watch it.
Well, it's like the girls. I remember
Because
we-
America
the
is
USA,
sexist.
The USA women's soccer team was complaining and arguing that they weren't being paid as much as the men's soccer team.
Yeah.
And the women's soccer team had won more tournaments and World Cups than the men's team had. And they were complaining that it wasn't fair, considering they considered themselves to be the better team, and they were being paid a lot less than the guys were.
It is actually really unfair. Like, I mean, women essentially do have to overcome the physical constraints of being a woman, and I don't mean that in like a sexist way. The female body is not built to be as strong as the male body. Serena Williams, you ever heard of her? The tennis player. She once, her and her sister Venus challenged any man from the top 200 of the men's to play against them. Try to beat them. And men play 5 sets of tennis. Women play, I think, 3. And I think a guy who was ranked like 192nd at the time, and he hadn't won like a majors tournament, and he might not even won a round in a while. He challenged them both, and he beat both in straight sets, I think. And they're like the number 1 women players, and they got destroyed by the guy who ranked 192, or something, or along those lines. He was not high. He was very, very low. And in terms of like mental prowess, that's different. But in terms of like the stuff that involves the physical prowess, so it's like that's why they generally separate things. It's why there's actually this I think would be a controversy that I would be interested to see about. There's been a lot of stink lately about transgender females. So they're now females. They were males. They're going through the transition or are completely there, competing against women in sports because they're generally beating the snot out of them. Because they were born male, they have a male's musculature and are competing against females in sports. Like, well, I understand it might be considered, what would you call it? Bigoted? I think if I was a woman, right, and I was an athlete,
You would see it as unfair.
and then somebody comes in and says, "Oh, I'm a woman too," and they had what I would consider to be is if I was an athlete, the physical benefit of having been born with a man's musculature and bone structure, regardless of whether or not they've transitioned completely the other way. Those advantages of strengths will still be there. Physical strengths that a woman can't overcome who was born as a woman. I do feel that there's an unfairness there that I really don't know how to address, because that's considered to be insensitive these days. And the girl, after she said, there was a girl who got third place in a cycling event, and the man had won. I'm sorry, the used to be a man girl had won the competition, and had won the last few. She got very frustrated and said, "It's not fair. She was born with a man's body, and now she's still getting the benefits from it." And then she pulled back and said, "No, I was just angry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that." And it was, people were like, "That's not fair of you to say it." And I was like, "I don't know, but is it though?" It's kind of like that girl was born with more of
There's
the
no way to win that argument.
raw materials, I guess, for success.
She's going to argue that she has every right to compete. But
The problem is there's not really a place to compete that's fair for everyone. Because if she tries to compete now against men, it won't be completely fair. But if she tries to compete against women, she's going to kill them every time. It's like, what do you do? And you want her to have the right to compete. But then you can also put her in, I don't know, it's a weird scenario. But I mean, again, that would even, I think, have a green reason why it's true, why it's necessary. Because talking about equality and what are the limits of equality, and is it equality of treatment or equality of literal equality, like the things literally being equal?
she could be a boxer. Because they fight people in the same weight class. So that's not technically unfair.
I think the tennis thing was a weight class thing too. I think that I don't know. I'm not so sure about that.
Because they can only compete against people who are the same body mass as she is.
Might work. Do the men compete against women in ultimate fighting?
No.
Why?
Don't know.
No. Why?
I've never seen it.
don't know.
I've never heard of a UFC or boxing fight where a man fights a woman.
Maybe
it's
because it
considered-
might get bad.
Oh, the stigma? What was that?
Might get bad publicity for it.
Yeah, because if you win, there's no way a guy loses that fight regardless. If you win,
Domestic violence.
it
looks like it
looks
reminds
like
people
you
of
just
domestic
beat-
violence.
Like
Yeah.
you beat a woman, but if you lose, that looks bad on your reputation as a fighter because
Because
you
people
got
are
beat
gonna be
by
like,
a
oh, you just
girl.
got beat by a woman.
So the woman wins the fight regardless.
Those are tough questions. If you really love sports and you can find a little niche area of sports to give me that you think that I would find neat, go for it. Because this one's really fascinating to me.
Chess?
Huh?
Chess?
That's not a sport. That's a competition.
Oh no, yeah. Mental competitions is different. I feel like women are
That's
equally
nothing
skilled
to
in
do
mental
with
competitions.
strength.
That's one thing.
But like I don't know, like playoff systems, I don't really care about
See,
that.
but
But
what do
as
you-
long as I have why it's necessary to even look at this issue, then it should work. I mean, I should feel why this is a necessary thing to look at. And it's hard for me to tell you exactly the things that people will give me that aren't worth looking at, because I never know until I see them. Because I've been teaching this so long that I can't remember what people consider to be important that's not.
Archery?
Oh, we're done on the sports. Now there's other areas beyond sports that people can give me that I don't feel are important. Like I don't know, like how cheesy weather forecasts have gotten, or something, and I'm just like, but I don't. Why are we looking at that? Like, is that an issue? Is that something a problem in the world today?
Who watches weather?
And that's not even the issue. It's just like,
We get notifications on our phones.
like I'm just more like, why does it even matter? Like if the weather's cheesy, even if it is, like, oh, I'm so pissed. The weather's cheesy. I've never once heard somebody say that. Although they probably would call on the Fox 4 viewer's voice. Anybody's parents watch Fox 4? The viewer's voice. A bunch of angry old people calling all the time. It's really funny too, because I wish it's so funny because it's always a bunch of angry. Anyways, angry presidents. They'll do a story about like Trump, and they say like Trump did this happened with Trump, and then these people they were going on. Somebody will call and say, y'all always say Trump's doing something wrong, and y'all never say what the alternative view is. And they'll say, well, here's our clip that we showed during that night's view, like forecast that showed we gave the alternate view, and like they literally just play the video clip They're like, but thanks though. They have to do that a lot. People call in angry and then they show a clip that shows they're not doing the thing that the person on the phone call said they did. It's not always Trump involved. It's other stuff too. Like, it's really funny. Let's go back over here. So I've got this file. I've submitted it. I'm looking at it somewhere. I'm going to go ahead and hit submit now because it meets all my criteria. Make it bigger, make it smaller. Got to make sure it shows in the viewer, because if I put it in the comments box, the thesis, it pops up on the right. And if I submitted the document correctly and it uploads correctly, and I keep saying the word correctly long enough, it'll pop up in the viewer. And as me, Nichols, the teacher, is sitting here looking at this, verifying it meets all my criteria, let's see, 5 articles written by different named authors besides the textbook. So I've got the Hawthorne, there it is, Miniatures Black Veil. And I did edit the citation to be like our textbook. This story is not in our textbook. But I wanted y'all to have what our textbook citation looks like, arguing about literature and all that stuff. So that you could then just not have to create your own citation for it. You could just use the one that we have here. But Barrett, Fox, Boone, Ferris, Friedman, Hawthorne, Holy Bible, Johnson. Why would I want different authors, all different authors for this? Different views, yeah. Same thing with the different published sponsors. So I've got Journal of Hate Studies, Renaissance, Critical Horizons, Studies in Short Fiction, Christian Science Monitor. So I've got a bunch of different sources. I want 1 to 2 story-related articles, and they should be from academic journals only. Now, in this case, this guy provided me more than that. He provided me Journal of Hate Studies. Let's see. Wait, no, I've got Renaissance, which is the literature, Critical Horizons, which is the literature, and I've got. Oh no, that's it. And then I've got Westboro Baptist Church's Journal of Hate Studies. Oh no, here's Study of Short Fiction. That's another. He's got 3 literature articles, which I generally don't allow, but I was okay with it in this circumstance. And he's got the Journal of Hate Studies, Westboro Baptist Church for the world issue. So usually it's supposed to be the other way around. It's supposed to be 3 for the world issue, 2 for the literature. But I permitted it in this circumstance. So if you submit it to me and I say yeah, it should be fine, then it's fine. Don't be brief articles. I guess I can show you how to not search for brief articles, but have no articles be written about the comparison you're making. So your thesis should be completely original, not derivative. So I don't want you to, if somebody has already come up with the thesis out there, they're like, oh man, somebody's written Battle Royal with the Me Too movement. I'll grab that article. Don't do it. Change topics. Either that or don't read that article. And trust me, if you read the article, just if you read it, if you don't even try to cite it, you're like, I'll just read it to see what I can find out. And you're like, oh, cool. It does seem like it'll work. Oh, I got yawn, Oscar. Jeez. If you do cite it, or if you read it and then you're trying to get away with just not citing it because you're like, okay, I'll just maybe like read it and see if the idea will work, and you do, and you read it and you like it, you'll just, no matter how hard you try, you'll end up taking ideas from it. And I'll know that you did. I'll know you took ideas from somewhere, I just may not know where. I'll be like, this seems suspicious. Just feels different. You ever see those movies? Like, I always have problems with those movies. We may have talked about this. Where, like, somebody suddenly pops up and, like the movie Face Off with Nicolas Cage and John Travolta, and they switch faces on their bodies. And so they're acting like themselves, but with somebody else's face. They're trying to act different, but they're just not being successful. I've always thought those movies are ridiculous because, like, if, for example, somebody took over my wife's body and they're in it, I would know this from, like, within 5 minutes of being in my house. The moment I walk through the door, she's not doing what she usually does. She's not saying what she usually says. She's not acting like she's usually acting. She's not asking me the questions she usually asks me. I'd be like, what's wrong with you? Now, I'm not going to know who she switched bodies with, if that's even a possibility. But I will be incredibly suspicious from the very beginning, and that's kind of how I see those papers. Is I'll read a paper and be like, that's not what they would usually say. This is not them. I can tell, and I can't figure out what it is about it. But I start looking around, and find it. It's just kind of how it works. And then the thesis should directly state or imply the importance of the comparison. And I prefer, really, that the world issue that you have be brought about by human relationships, like problems of politics or domestic issues, violence, war, race, culture, etc., or at least framed as such. When we have cosmetic surgery, it's solitary technically, but you can reframe it as resulting from one's sensitivity to others' judgments, and that's why people get cosmetic surgery in the first place. So that it becomes a human issue. Like, people would not get cosmetic surgery if other people didn't have eyes and minds that judge.
That's kind of.
Mark that one. Let's put a pin in it. Let's see. And there's one more thing I wanted to show you. So I want your sources to look like this. So notice that the academic search complete sources, they should just say search.ebscohost.com. This is the reference number that's at the bottom of all the citations. There's actually an easy way to get it, and I can kind of show you that real quick because I've already got academic search complete pulled up. Let's say I search for ministers black veil, and it says a system problem has occurred. So I go back to the main website. Quick links, library services. I don't know how I logged out. I did this like an hour ago. Academic search complete. There we go. Ministers, black, veil. 1, make sure you click scholarly peer-reviewed journals. I think that's going to be the best idea. Doesn't matter the year because it can be recent. No book reviews. Just give me academic journals. But when you click this article, it's unlikely that it's going to give you on the citation a DOI number. Most literary journals don't. So when you scroll down to MLA, notice we have all this junk. Let's say that I make a works cited page and I paste this in. Hanging in at 1/2 inch. 2. All I need here is the search.ebscohost.com, and this AN number, which is the reference number, while it is on this website, if I close out of this citation tool thing, it's right here. And I can just type AN and then that number, but there's a much easier way. It's built into this web address. If I just backspace all this stuff right here to the AN, and then hit period, space, space, get rid of this equals mark, equal sign, and then I'll just delete the rest of this. Hit a period, and I've got it. So I've got that AN reference number. The reason I have this AN reference number is because if I just copy and paste this into the databases, it brings up a search that only has the one article I'm looking for as the result.
It's PIN number.
Huh?
PIN number.
Yeah, it's like a PIN number for your article, which is useful. And additionally, I think I had something else on one of the other articles. There's that if it includes a DOI number, whatever it has is the source. So if I go here, they actually changed the way to display on Academic Search Complete, which I'm fine with. So if I do the citation now, I believe it's slightly different. Let's see, cite. No, they still do it the same way. So yeah, if you have a DOI number on a citation, you just leave it exactly the way it looks. You have to make no changes. And I think that's really all you need to know about finding the sources. I swear there was one more thing that I just cannot remember how to find these sources. If y'all end up having any issues with it, go ahead and start looking just on your free time for some sources. And if you manage to, any problems you come up with along the way, can you write those down and ask me next week? That way I can start kind of addressing those. Oh, sorry, it's 12:17. Y'all have a good one.
Yes.
Because I think Amanda, didn't you have some questions about the looking up the research and stuff in databases, or somebody did? I thought you asked me last week, how do we do the databases and stuff? Because it's been a while.
I saw it.
I'm a-
No, that wasn't you?
You showed how to go to the library and the database thing.
Okay. So I did do
You
that.
said
Yes.
if you have your password automatically, you're gonna have to put it in again.
And if you don't remember it, we have good luck.
Did I actually look anything up on there?
No, you didn't
No.
look up anything.
Okay, okay.
You just went to it and clicked to it.
They really don't have that much research on that site.
They do on different topics. What they don't have it on is the literature as much. So you're probably going to have some trouble with the literature, to be dead honest. What I'm going to do today is start by going to our assignment page and showing you all these different things that I have here. I wouldn't really trust the research paper rubric yet. You're not going to be writing it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Because I might make some changes to that before I upload it again. But the research balance checklist is what I wanted to check today and talk to y'all about that. Because I think that we are going to be able to talk about this. I believe this is finalized for the most part. I also want to talk about, and I apologize for this, I had everything pulled up last night, but I don't know what it is about Windows 10 and then what updates they've done recently, but it shuts down randomly and I can't make it stop. It just will shut down on me. My computer will. I'll put it in sleep mode and it just wakes itself up, installs some updates, and then shuts itself back down and I can't make it quit. And it did that last night when I got to class this morning. We were all waiting 25 minutes for my computer to get ready. That was funny. I just saw something that made me laugh. So I'm going to open this up real quick. The searching for research paper topic. Nice and green.
Are you gonna cover somehow, how are we supposed to change the,
Planning?
possible- Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't. What is the difference here?
What's blue, what's green?
I'm trying to figure out why it even tells me there's a document recovery when I don't think I made any changes to it whatsoever. Let's do this. Let's go to the end and work back this way. No. Yeah. This is essentially what you're going to try to turn in is a thesis like this. And I've color coded it here not because you have to color code, but because this is the parts the thesis has to contain. So anything in blue is the basic stuff that's got to be. So you have to have your story and your real world issue. So when you pick your story like Minister's Black Fail, that and your real world issue or the real world situation, Westboro Baptist Church, have to both appear in the thesis. That thesis can run more than one sentence if you're having trouble figuring out how to fit it into one, but it's got to at least contain both of those things. Red is the point you're trying to prove about them, and that's what's going to give you a difficult time. Honestly, I may redo this in terms of the color coding at some point, because there's one other element that I think needs to be in there that I consider to be blue, but which I didn't put in there before, which is to have the human problem that's similar between the two. In this case, does anybody remember what the human problem is between Westboro Baptist and the Minister's Black Fail, the story I was mentioning?
Morality.
Huh?
Morality.
It is an element of morality, something we consider to be,
Hypocrisy.
yes, hypocrisy. So I really kind of would like to say that the hypocritical issue here is really what the heart of what we're getting to. So in all honesty, I'd probably these days recolor code this as blue hypocritical, blue Minister's Black Fail, blue Westboro Baptist Church, because that makes up your first 3 paragraphs anyway.
Okay. I have a question.
Yes.
What if we don't necessarily have something specific like that that relates to our two? Does that mean it won't work at all?
Give me an example of what you're talking about. What are your your ideas you're doing?
Okay, so my idea, like I was gonna do the yellow wallpaper and do suicide prevention, because like the yellow wallpaper can teach us that if we just pay attention to the people around us, we can prevent more suicides, basically. That's what I was gonna do.
Pay attention,
Even though she
prevent more
doesn't-
suicides.
Even though she doesn't really commit suicide, she goes crazy, and she even mentions contemplating it, but she says she couldn't get the bars off the window.
Okay, so essentially, okay, let's look at the 2 scenarios. So what we have these days is when people commit suicide, it's the results of, yes, of course, something that's inside, but anytime somebody tries to commit suicide, it's generally speaking a solitary moment. It's not somebody goes into a crowd of people and then tries to commit suicide. So generally speaking, it's a solitary thing.
But you usually find, like, there are a lot of...
Right. Well, yeah, I guess I'm getting to that and trying to process it. So...
I mean,
A
honestly,
suicide is the result of other people, that person not having other people available who have been able to identify the issues and properly treat them. And that's the same thing with Yellow Wallpaper, where they
Right.
didn't identify what was wrong with her properly. Really, okay, let's see. So the true problem in that story, as it was told to us, is that there was essentially a lack of respect for women and their own opinions and their ideals. And I guess in the same regard, I mean, almost every single like school shooter we have, and that's not suicide, but every single like school shooter we have is somebody who had mental issues before, somebody who had behavioral problems, and somebody just either didn't speak out or didn't think that it was all that serious.
I didn't want to just make it too obvious though. Like I know it's mostly about women, but I didn't want to just.
No, in fact, I want you to extrapolate like that.
No, yeah,
that's what I want. If I had to draw like the way most people try to do this.
But like, would that work?
Well, I'm trying to. I mean, that would work. Yes, the idea would work. But if you're talking about like, how do I identify that human problem that exists between them? Because like most people I've been having try to pick topics are doing this, where I would consider this as a category of like real world issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I have most people are saying, here's the stories issue. So that the story technically fits within the umbrella of the real world issue. Something like looking like Yellow Wallpaper and postpartum depression. So postpartum depression is the big umbrella that Yellow Wallpaper is also.
Obvious, and I didn't want to do obvious.
Yellow Wallpaper fits within that, but I don't want this, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
This is bad.
Good.
What I do want is something that is specific, but different enough that you can say that it's different. So what I really want is story. So this is no.
Okay.
What I really want is story and real world issue. So that they each fall under their own individual umbrellas. But essentially what you're trying to say is look how the shape is similar.
So you kind of want one of those, like a Venn diagram almost. But that's more of a, never mind. Just drop that. That was
Yeah,
So
I'll
are
take
you
it.
not wanting us to like bring up the story a lot in the paper?
No, I want you bringing it up about half the time.
And then the other half the real
So the
world
other half
issue.
is the real world.
So part
But
of the
like-
story, part of it real
Well,
world issue.
Well, it does depend on the topic. Because
We'll
sometimes,
basically be bringing them both up at the same time.
yeah, as you talk about them. And so it'll feel a lot like a compare and contrast essay, but what will make the difference is that you're constantly
Talking about the similarities.
at least implying an argument that this is an important thing to look at because it's a problem and
Like
it needs to be
we're-
fixed
We're trying to make
without
it-
necessarily providing the solution.
We're trying, yeah. So like, we're trying to prove why literature is important and what it teaches us.
And specifically what this particular story teaches us in this particular
Right,
situation.
right.
Yes.
I have a thesis that we've already done based on a topic, not the one I emailed you about, but I found another one and I completed my thesis
Okay.
of all the different researches. Can you look at it and tell us if it's good?
Yeah, ask me right now. I mean, are you comfortable with that now?
Reading it to you?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can.
I'm gonna
And I can just see it.
The gender inequality that manifests within the societal views of women has been longstanding normalization in the eyes of many. So many women suffer as a result, with their voices or concerns left unheard, and are also often ashamed to speak up when a sexual assault occurs. It's basically like
Okay,
gender
now.
inequality was like not being able to talk about sexual assault also.
And what story?
Yellow Wallpaper.
Okay, yeah, see, so if it was your thesis, it would have to include Yellow Wallpaper within that thesis.
Yeah, this is just like my.
Oh, so it's not really truly a
It's
thesis,
just,
it's an
no,
idea.
it's just like I'm composing it, but I haven't completed it yet. if
Gotcha.
that makes sense.
Yeah, we figured out a way to include it all.
Yeah.
That's good.
But so essentially, sexual assault and Yellow
Normalizing
Wallpaper.
it and not being able to talk about it because women aren't really heard as often as they should be.
Okay, so
So it's about respect for women things.
not
Yeah, like
respecting
gender
women's opinion on sexual assaults that they've endured, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, that's another umbrella. So we have, what was your umbrella?
Mine was
Was Yellow
suicide
Wallpaper?
prevention.
Suicide prevention, totally different issue. Because suicide, not the same as what's going on in the story. And yours, which is real world issue, is sexual assault and the lack of respect of women's sexual assault experiences. Also, not at all related to the story, but can we compare it in the way in which they work? It's kind of like what you're doing. I wish I had like a visual for this. It's almost like you're trying to. You ever heard of noise canceling headphones?
Yes.
Yes.
Y'all know how they work? You know that they work. What I mean is like the literal meaning of the word how. You know how they work. Okay. So essentially the way that sound works is like this, and this is a gross overgeneralization. So you've seen like an equalizer before, right? An equalizer goes like this.
Mm-hmm.
I really got that too complicated. I shouldn't have done that. Essentially what a noise canceling set of headphones does is it tries to, as it hears sound in the real world, create the same sound but it's opposite. So it tries to
So
go.
it zeroes it out. No idea what you mean.
So do you see how these are the same but opposite? The way sound works is when you hear two sounds that are the same, what it makes it do is this. So you'll hear noise, but it won't have articulation anymore. That noise will go away.
But what is your, like,
The reason I'm saying this is I want you doing kind of the opposite of this. I want like like let's say the shape of my story in terms of like the way that it works and the human issues that it addresses would be like this. I want another real world issue that I approach in the same way. I want the shapes of both things to match. That one doesn't look the same. And this is just me trying to. Oh my gosh, this is so okay. So this is the problem. This is the problem is that I'm trying to articulate to you the way that I think in my head. This is the way my thoughts work. They generally have shapes that I don't ever actually articulate. It's like because I'm having to put into words the shapes of feelings.
So,
but
So our real
these are not the real shapes of these. But say the story, what we have essentially happen is like the ups and downs of like the feelings. Okay, so like let's say one element that we have here is we have her. Okay, there's the top, the little circular arc here thing. That's her and her experiences. Now this down here is the lack of respect paid toward her personal opinions. This right here is the rise of her fall. I guess it just doesn't make any sense. But it's the escalation of things going badly for her as a result of that lack of respect that's paid to this person. It should be important. The same is true in every one of these situations. This is a person who has been. This is sex assault.
no, that one was.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
And then we have suicide. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, it's different. So here we have a person who's been sexually assaulted, or a person who's been sexually assaulted should be respected. Nobody listens to her. And then things get worse for her as a result. And here we have somebody who is having a bad time in life and should be paid attention to, but things get really bad for them because nobody does, and then things escalate badly for them as a result. So if you look at the shapes of the way that their situations play out are the same, and that's kind of the way it's something that, and I feel bad about this, but it's something that I feel is very important for people to do, which I feel like this part of English has always come very easy for me. I can draw comparisons between things quickly. Like it's like that. Like sometimes I have trouble articulating it to you. Like sometimes you'll see those say like, I'll say, well, here's an example, like Battle Royal and this, and then I go, and because essentially what occurs in my head is a shape. And then I'm going to tell you what the shape means because I don't yet know. Like I just know it exists and they're the same. I usually don't miss the first try. I usually miss the second and the third. So you kind of want to find two scenarios, like the story and the real world issue, where they work the same and at the same level too. So I remember, you probably don't. In 1301, we talked about classification division. So when you draw categories and when you divide into smaller categories, you want those categories to be at the same level. Like you can't say that biology falls under the umbrella. You want to say that biology, chemistry, and physics are different science subjects. That's kind of how you want to think of these. This situation is within the same category as this one and this one. you don't want to have something fall. You don't want to say, okay, well, I think that biology is very similar to science, because biology is a science.
Right.
So you can't say that postpartum depression is similar to feminist issues, because it falls under that umbrella of feminist issues. People not paying attention to women's. So rather you pick a different feminist issue like sex assault, or something that's what?
So, like, are you saying that we can't use what we picked?
No, he's saying
I'm
that you
confused.
can. He's saying that.
I'm saying you can. Okay, here's the difference. Here's the thing. If you were to just say to me, I'm comparing what happens in the yellow wallpaper to what happens in feminism today, or in gender issues, that's literally what the story is about, so that wouldn't work. But you're specifying it specifically to the lack of respect paid towards sex assault victims.
Mm-hmm.
That's a specific area within feminism and gender issues, so that works.
Oh, okay.
It's that there's the big umbrella that's feminism and gender issues, which covers both of these ideas.
Mm-hmm.
It's
But
almost
you're
like,
writing about a different idea under the same umbrella. You're not writing about the umbrella. I don't want people writing about the umbrella
Because-
that covers their
So
own
if
issue.
I were to have just said specifically gender inequality, that wouldn't have been acceptable.
Right, but because you're specifying the sex
Elaborating on
assault.
another topic in that, that's fine.
Yeah, and it's also okay to do this. Look, this is an example of, this does not fall under the same umbrella, suicide prevention, because it has nothing to do with women. Yeah, it can, but it's not specific to women. Here's the weird thing, is that the shape sometimes can apply to other things. So, this is weird, but what was the shape?
A weird little thing.
Okay. Oh, we need a bigger arc. Bigger arcs. We need more respect. There we go. If we think of, like, say, a nation or an entire idea that's not paid the respect that it deserves, that's completely different from the individual level. What? What?
Sealand.
Sealand? What is Sealand?
Nobody knows.
What are you talking about?
Something tells me that a meme just expressed itself out loud. I think that's
I thought you said
Nobody thinks of
Nobody.
Nobody knows what's going on.
Nobody recognizes it as a country. Nobody recognizes England as a country, but bigger.
So something that escalates as a problem as a result of not being
Zealand.
New Zealand?
You saying Zealand?
She's saying
Yeah.
sea and land, aren't you? Or
Zealand.
sea?
Sealand.
Where the water is.
Sounds like some
And
country
land.
in the Indian.
I almost said where the water at. Because have you seen the movie Finding Forrester? Y'all seen the movie a long time ago? He's talking to the guy who ended up going to private school, and he's like super smart, and he says like he's talking to his buddy, and he goes, he's pissed off because the kid's now going to private school, and he's got like this great life apparently that's going to be opening up to him. And he's like, you gonna be around this weekend, like in Brooklyn, because he hasn't been spending a lot of time there. And he's like, yeah, where do you think I'm gonna be? The Hamptons? Where the water at? And I was just like, I don't know. I've always, that phrase always stuck with me. That was really funny.
Are you talking about the Principality of Zealand? Just think
Yeah.
about the.
It's a self-claimed country in the North Sea, but it's not an island.
Where are we?
Nobody
What are we doing?
recognizes it as a country, but.
You did
I know,
that.
I'm trying to
So
think.
you were gonna relate it instead of it to an individual.
What is an entire government or an entire nation that is not respected but expects to get it, and then everybody disrespects it, and as a result things get way, way worse for it?
Israel.
Afghanistan.
I don't know, Israel's one of those that's like on both sides. I'm looking like somebody almost
But
disregards.
pretty much everybody like wants.
It says, look, I exist, and everybody goes, yeah, but who cares? And then things get worse.
Venezuela.
Venezuela? What is happening with Venezuela? Is that a communism, socialism problem?
Yeah, it's like basically Maduro, which is the president,
Oh,
is the
yeah,
crazy one, and
she's
everybody
right.
else is like against him.
Korea.
But they still have to follow his rules.
And it
because
just
he's
keeps
the
getting
president.
worse.
Yeah.
All the world is like, oh, we know you have an issue, but who cares? It's just
Yeah.
Venezuela. Nobody's doing anything.
Well, the thing is that they. Oh. But they haven't necessarily brought this on themselves, right?
No.
Because it's just they're subject to the government that has been written for
Right.
them a long time ago.
Right.
Who are they telling the world we have a problem and nobody's doing anything
Well,
about it?
they've gone to like different. Is it like the United Nations, I guess?
And they, they've asked for help from other countries, and they're like, we can't do anything about it. I mean, they threat that they're gonna do something, but they never do.
Guys, we need help. Our government is ruined and screwed up, and we're all dying. And then nobody listens. They're like, oh, sorry, Venezuela. All you gotta do is fix this. And they're like, but you don't understand. We can't just fix this. It's a problem that we can't do anything about. It needs some outside help. And they're like, well, you can, and it explodes themselves.
Now people are kind of like
Implodes.
going out of the country to try to find like asylum somewhere else because they don't even have food there anymore. The government,
and which is yet another problem, because I feel like that's one of the biggest problems that we have in the world today. This is my personal opinion, but one of the biggest problems that we have in the world is when people try to escape their problems, thereby worsening the thing they're escaping. Like, for example, I love Texas, and if I thought that there was something wrong with Texas, it's my home.
But it's like with any
But to
problem,
leave
if you
Texas
ignore
because
it.
it doesn't, they're like, man, Texas just isn't what I always thought it was. Well, then stay and try to figure out how to make it better. Don't leave it and thereby make it worse by leaving.
No, it's like any problem. If you ignore it, it'll eventually just get worse. It'll just build up.
That's what they do with some countries.
Which also works in the small shapes. So see, then that's the whole kind of point, is that we have big umbrellas that cover the small shapes. But we can have giant umbrellas, and that's when I wrote my Willy Loman's Distortion of the American Dream. It's one of these. It's the shape of a guy who, and this is a different shape, but it's a guy who thinks that he will become a success, isn't prepared for when he doesn't, goes on a slow descent, and then drops off entirely.
So
This is like the different, like, country-sized. So this is Willy Loman. This implies that his plight is worse than normal people's. It's not.
So real quick, when it comes to writing the thesis, like what you've got up there where it says hypocritical, like that's, like for me and Heather, ours would instead be lack of respect. Because that's what we're facing.
Yeah.
Because it's a lack of respect, they don't see the problem, and then...
Is there a better word for like a combined word? Lack of respect is fine, but like a disregarding?
No, yeah, that's what I just came up with. Ignoring.
I don't like the word ignoring, because then I think people can... Huh?
Like normalizing what's wrong with people.
Normalizing doesn't sound bad enough.
Let me look.
Normalizing is a good word, but it just doesn't have that ring. It doesn't have that.
Discourtesy?
Yeah. Try the word disregard, because that's the one I'm looking for. I just need a better word for it.
Okay, hold on. Let me just Google something.
Do you have a shape for like how we're supposed to tie the story and the...
It says ignore.
Yeah, you just have to make sure the shape is the same as the story.
Indifference.
What?
Indifference.
Disregard, indifference.
It's, I mean,
Yeah,
literally,
yeah, that
I
would
just
also
typed
work
in-
too.
it's- the first one that popped up was ignore.
American government, turns out they're spying on people.
What about neglect?
It's fine, guys, it's fine. Government implodes. So that's a different. I didn't even really have to write that one. But notice that my example in the syllabus packet, the paper packet, the shape is the same for two things. One is an individual version and one is a giant version. So let's get back to, this was all starting to talk about the blue.
Is this PowerPoint in Blackboard?
Oh, I don't know. I need to look. I don't think it is in the
I would
PowerPoints.
appreciate it if it was.
Yeah, I can add it. And really, honestly, I don't know that the PowerPoint itself needs to be added because there's a whole lot of useless stuff. I just use it for this one image that's in it.
We'll just add that one image if you could.
This is a bunch of old database stuff. Only what I can do is, we have time. We don't, but we have time. I can just remake it. Because, I mean, what else am I doing? So I can do, why are you telling me this auto-recover? Just go away. Let's just do this on the left. Let's make it bigger. Let's say thesis. Do I have this written somewhere? I do, don't I? In fact, let's go ahead and make our own like little works cited file. That'll be easier. Because I can show you all how to submit this as well. And then I can take a screenshot of it and badoosh, we're good.
Sweet.
All right, so we've got this, new file, paste. So I have a works cited. Ta-da! And by the way, I wanted to note that I know this through the class, I wanted to show y'all too, that I have the Hawthorne's Minister's Black Veil was not actually in our textbook, but I wanted y'all to have the MLA citation information for our textbook, so you wouldn't have to make that. So that's right there. So you'll have to change the page numbers, but for the most part, I believe that that's all relevant to whatever story you pick. And so what I'm going to have down below is I'll just have the thesis, because you can put it in the same document. In fact, I would encourage you to do that. And the reason is because that makes sure it doesn't get lost. But I have the thesis on the second page. There it is. Now, to be dead honest, if I was going to do this myself and not just rely on what that student did, actually, let's make it look a little nicer here. Hanging indent, 1/2 inch. Looks better. You don't have to do this. I'm just doing this for clarity's sake. Did I have it double spaced on the other one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll make it bigger though, so it's easier to see. But what I have the room, let's do Control Enter. Software is changing too much. It's frustrating. And I'm going to say this is blue human problem, real world issue, story. What was the other colors?
Red and green.
Red. Point you're trying to prove about them / how they link up. Green. Why this is true / why it's important, why it's necessary to see. Finger slip. So what I've got here is we can probably just read the whole thing because mostly it's red, and then just go back and blue the stuff we need. So hypocrisy is the real issue here, the human problem. Additionally, the minister's black veil is the story we're talking about. And the Westboro Baptist Church is the real world issue that's specific that we're dealing with. You know what I'll do? I'll just do this. We'll just make it a little easier. Yeah, I don't know. It just makes it easier to look at. So I have this, and now if I was just doing this today for me, that's not supposed to be a semicolon. That kid got that wrong. We're gonna browse. We're gonna find the 1302 folder. Is that no? That's not the right folder. I'm gonna go browse, documents. Oh, here it is. 1302 fall 2018. Research paper materials. Let's do research paper planning attempt 2 because I'm gonna make a second attempt. And what I say, let's do blue. Let's do red. And then green. Green is something we'll sort of have to add. Because, I mean, that doesn't, this is just kind of for you. So you know that the thing that you're doing is important. You should be able to talk about why it's important. In this scenario, I mean, if I was to ask you why, who cares? You should be able to answer me. Like in this scenario here, we have sex assault. I mean, it's important that we acknowledge the difficult task it is, or not task it is, but the difficulty a sex assault victim has, and the lack of respect that they endure, and those sorts of things, so that we can, help those people not have to endure what is probably close now to post-traumatic, or if not post-traumatic stress disorder, that we just sort of go, oh, well, it was some kid who's, he didn't know what he was doing, he can't control himself, blah, blah, blah. But it is. It's a traumatic, and it's something that we need to acknowledge. Bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you. And then over here, the suicide prevention. It's important that we make people not die. That we not make sure that when people are attacked, that we acknowledge what they've gone through, and people, not kill themselves as a result of our lack of attention toward them. You should be able to say, we want to, because the whole goal is to help people. So I mean, essentially, you should be able to importa. No, I picked a couple letters. It's important because hypocrisy is problematic, and the people who are disrespected at the funerals are robbed of their opportunity to grieve, and having people profess hate, claiming that it's love, spreads disrespect and what now?
Nothing.
You can add something.
I was just gonna say it does more harm than good.
Yes. Oh yeah, it's, well, I guess I just still need that part though, don't I?
Harm.
I was making sure I had the rest of what I had said because I was like, wait, did I even finish what I was trying? Okay. It's more because hypocrisy problematic. People who are disrespect the funerals are robbed of their opportunity to grieve and having people profess that. This is not an official sentence, so I don't have to make sure that this sounds great. This is just so I know that it's worth looking
But
at.
we can put it in 2 sentences like that, so we don't have like a really.
This, literally, this bit is just for you. The way I would want it turned in is like this.
Oh, so you don't want us to put our green in our thesis? You just want us to be able to tell.
That's all I need submitted. This.
Okay.
If it makes you feel better, if you have it color coded because you've gone through the effort of it, that's fine. Okay. If it makes you feel better to even include your reasoning behind it and say, listen, Nichols, this is, I want you to, am I right? I mean, because if somebody was to come at me and say, the yellow wallpaper is very similar to the situation we have in college sports teams not having playoffs that are like the NFL. I'm like, who cares? Like, what does that matter? Why does it matter that we don't have the playoff system in the NCAA like we have in the NFL? It doesn't matter at all. It doesn't affect anybody. It just makes people angry for some reason. The stupid bowl system. It's like, listen, there are better things. There are things that do matter and there are things that don't matter, and you're yelling about one of the things that doesn't.
There's a lot.
I used to like sports too. It's just they draw you in the moment. Then you think about it for even a second. And you go, oh, this doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't like sports
like at all.
It's a waste of my time.
The only thing it really matters for is seeing what are the limits of human achievement. It's kind of like the Olympics. It's a fascinating, like Usain Bolt destroying sprinting records. It's just cool. Like that's what humans can achieve at their pinnacle. Do you know that he's also, I think, the only of the top like 9 of like the highest 30 like sprinters that's ever like of sprinting finishes ever. I think like had drugs involved in some way when they've gone back and looked. But he's the exception. He's got none. Like he's the best. Something he's not. He's pretty old.
Yeah, I was about to say he's old now.
Like what you know that song like I'm as good once as I ever was, that country song. Like he just is. He really is. But he's as good once. He's as good twice. He's as good. I mean, he can still beat anybody. Wasn't there like a team that like they put him on like a soccer team because he's just so fast. I mean, really, he's so gifted at speed that like they put him on like a soccer team and he just was. I think he was still able to do pretty decent.
He's 32.
32, and he's winning records.
Right in his 30s.
Yeah.
You have no business winning records at 32.
Still win records.
In my 30s, I'm gonna be like super lazy.
Funny. So that's the thesis bit. That's the most important bit anyway. Thesis. So if we scroll up, we also have to have the works cited. And the works cited is, I haven't taken you there yet, but I can show you. In fact, this is probably the best example. Is if I look up this article, let's say that I look up ministers, because I don't have a whole lot of time left, like 10 minutes, but we can accomplish all that because the databases are not, I don't think, too awful difficult to use. So we have this morality without intention thing. So I'm going to actually take you back there. We go to parisjc.edu. If you need to have me tell you later how to get here, you can just search BJC Library on Google, and I'm sure PJC Library will take you to this page. And then off-campus databases. You're going to do your Blackboard information, so student ID, 8-digit birth date. Once you've got a topic, so I told you opposing viewpoints really don't use it for research. Well, I mean, you could. It's got more news articles, so if you ended up in a scenario where you needed more news. But I would say sex assault victims and suicide prevention, there's a hell of a lot of psychology journals out there about those things. So there's really no point in using news. Like Westboro Baptist Church, there weren't at the time a lot of academic journals. That's the only reason you had news sources.
Because it's like a specific event.
And, yeah, I mean, but yeah, because it had been recent. Like if you were going to give me something about the Kavanaugh situation with like the Supreme Court, which actually would be very relevant to the sex assault case, and that's fine. But if somebody decided to do that, they could do it. The problem would be that there wouldn't be any academic journals written about
So you just have to really
Kavanaugh.
make sure that your sources are reliable.
But
Well, yeah, you'd have to make sure you have as reliable as possible of sources. Yeah.
with the example you have, it has like the specific incident with Westboro or whatever. And with the topics we chose, how do you like elaborate on that? Like, if you don't have a specific like pinpointed like specific like instance, I guess.
Yours will be more written about. It's actually, I'd say, probably harder to do if it's an individual than it is in your situation.
I don't think so. I think it's easier because you have like you pinpoint your brain there.
Yeah.
And you just kind of elaborate on different points.
The thing is, you have to make sure the two things work exactly together, because one, you kind of have to ignore Kavanaugh in a sense, and you have to think about Dr. Blasey Ford, who was the person who was assaulted, and now nobody respects her opinion, or a number of people don't. Then she's essentially going through the whole thing over again as a result of trying to come forward and nobody respects her opinion. And so you'd have to make sure that works the same as the yellow wallpaper, which I can definitely see some differences already.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at sex assault in sort of the umbrella form, and like you're looking at different articles people have written about sex assault, the effects on the victims, they're going to be talking about it from more of a statistical standpoint. So you can look at statistically, like what she's going through here is very similar to what sex assault victims go through in these scenarios.
Okay. And you have more to elaborate on, I guess.
Yes, and you have way more research out there that's been done.
Right.
Granted, you do have to do academic journals and not news articles. Like if I find articles on Dr. Blasey Ford, that's all going to be news. No academic journal stuff.
So you're saying that on the research that we're doing, it has to be academic journals?
If your topic merits it, you would have no reason to do news articles because
We don't have events.
you're doing sexual
I'd have to
assault.
look back and see what I looked at because I don't know if they're exactly academic journals.
Okay. Oh, you've already found all your stuff. Oh, okay. But yeah, and in your case too, suicide prevention, there's a whole lot of academic journals out there on that. And so that's in most
This has been a problem
cases,
for a long time.
right. In most cases, you'll probably be able to find a lot of your stuff on Academic Search Complete, as you probably should. But if you get super specific and get down to even the individual level, and it's a recent thing, you may end up with just something you can do on the news. So every single person's topic will have different requirements. The other day I used cosmetic surgery as an example. And I'm not going to do that again because apparently it's fine in the search results to have pictures of vaginas in the process of reconstruction. Because they just were like, boop, there we are. We're working on this. And I was just like, all right. Yeah, we're not going to do that again.
To use both, right? Like,
You can use both, but it depends on your topic. Like when you if you propose to me a topic, and for example, if you were to propose to me a topic, granted, maybe I don't want to use yours because you're like, I'm talking to you directly and you've already done yours. Let's say suicide prevention. If you give me suicide prevention and I see a whole bunch of news articles about suicide prevention, those people aren't authorities on suicide prevention. There are actually verifiable people with PhDs out there in that sort of thing. So I can go find their articles on suicide prevention and have a much better paper that would actually tell me what we should be doing.
Yeah, because I used an article last semester on suicide.
Yeah. And granted, I can still get it from newspaper articles that are essentially telling us about the problem, because that's really the main thing we need to get to. Because your job here is not necessarily you don't have to solve this problem. You don't have to tell me what the solution is. You just need to point in the direction of paying attention to the lessons from the story would help us understand what could be done in this real world issue, even if we don't.
And respecting people, it would happen.
Yes, and that's about as far as we need to go. We don't need to go through what is the specific official respect scenario we need to come up with. Like we don't need to come up with policies or anything like that. That's for somebody else. We're more like advisors. Like you're advising, like you would maybe take this and say, listen, if we look at yellow wallpaper here, Mr. Politician, take a look at this. We already have this blueprint for
We just need to get
how to deal with people who are having these kinds of issues that nobody's respecting. And he would be like, I totally respect your opinion, but I'm not going to do anything about this. And you'd be like, oh, now it's me. I'm in the shape.
No, I straight up had a politician tell me that. I emailed him about some problems, and he said, yeah, I get it, but I'm not going to do anything about it.
You're effing wrong.
So
That's what he told me.
the scholarly article about the literature, what are we supposed to do with that one?
This one. Minister's Black Veil. I'll search for it. And it won't work. God, you freaking lady. Okay. What you're supposed to do with it is essentially like somebody who's put a lot of time and effort into thinking about Minister's Black Veil, or whatever story you have. Somebody who's researched it, has really plumbed the depths of it. They'll have come up with ideas, kind of like we did on the critical evaluation where y'all wrote your own, but now there's somebody who's spent all their time essentially thinking of critical evaluation stuff for this story. So you'll be able to even, when you're trying to relate it to your real world situation, you won't just have to rely on what you've been able to come up with the story. You can go and find what somebody else has been doing analytically on the story as well. And so, oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, he's right. And then you can include those items as well. It doesn't always have to be that detailed. I mean, most of my students ended up just using it as another place to find information about the story. But like the Minister's Black Veil guy in here, I think he says that one of the particular opinions about the way that the townsfolk worked, he got from the story, the article, instead of just the story. So it shows there's some expert out there who thinks this about the story instead of just you saying it. So that's kind of how you're supposed to use the literature. How many results do I have from Minister's Black Veil? 10. So I want to do scholarly, peer-reviewed. What does that do? Apparently nothing. I'll just keep scrolling. I'm trying to find one particular article because not all of your articles are going to end up like this. I will punch you in the face. Okay. Cite. Not for sneezing. This. Scroll down to MLA. Here's where you get the citations. And this is an MLA format, but if I copy this and then I start making I can, paste it over here and make it look just like this. The reason, you're not always going to have this DOI number, which I like, but you're not always going to have it. So I've got the Minister's Black Veil and Hawthorne's ethical refusal of reciprocity. Oh gosh, I don't even know if we have that one. Let's go back and see. Minister's Black Veil and Hawthorne, there we go, ethical refusal of reciprocity. So if I click here, you'll notice I don't have in the citation the exact same information that I have on the other one because I don't have a DOI number, which is what MLA requires, is a digital object identifier. If you don't have it, it tells you this stuff to include. I don't like that. I want you to include this specific thing. So if we paste it in, look, no, I said merge formatting, and we're not in freaking Calibri or Arial. We're in Times New Roman 12 point. Do you see this, guys, with your freaking eyes? It's lying to me. The quotations are off. I'll have to deal with it. I actually want that number. See, I have the number right here. It's the accession number. You can find that by closing out of the article, and look, here's the accession number. But if I put AN in front of it, that kind of just abbreviates it, and I have the number there. And you can do that with what you have here. If you actually take and just get everything down to EBSCOhost, but check a look at this, AN, backspace all that bit, period, ... Get rid of the equals sign, get rid of the rest. The AN number is already in that web address, and you can just steal it.
We only need that if we don't have a DOI.
Yeah, only if you don't have a DOI. Most of your academic search complete, or most of your research will be done on academic search complete. That's why I'm showing you that. But the reason I have this and why it's a good resource is, let's do the DOI number first. If you copy the DOI number with DOI in front, just like that, and I put it in the search bar here, it takes me to the DOI article. If I copy this AN number for the Boone article, and I paste it here, it takes me to the Boone article. Yeah, so I have a lot of students, a lot of emails come and say, I looked for this article, I found it, I can't find it again. What do I do? Well, go back in the past and fix the fact that you did it wrong the first time. That's kind of like my response. Otherwise, just search. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Start that search again. Because, I mean, that's what the whole point of all
But
this
you don't actually look at the articles we submit. You just look at that to make sure they look worthy.
I look at this to make sure that they look worthy, essentially. Worthy is a good no. So let me show you what happens when I actually submit real quick, because it doesn't take very long. I'm going to click research paper planning. Boom. We'll talk about the research balance checklist another time, but there's a certain balance I want you to have to the research. In fact, it'd be a great idea if you just looked at this research balance checklist. I'll try to remember to talk about it next week too, but real quick, this is when I look at resources, this is what I check for. I want to make sure that you have 6 sources in total, including the textbook, 5 other ones. No Spark Notes, Cliff Notes, Schmoop, of course, no Wikipedia, About.com, Ask.com, Yahoo Answers. I want 5 articles are all written by different people and from different journals. The geography thing, don't worry so much about. I would prefer if you find articles that have no bias to them, because then it's a more credible situation. 1 to 2 about the story, 3 to 4 about the real world issue, and that they're not brief articles. Full articles is what I want. I don't want any articles that are written specifically about the comparison you're making, where somebody's already looked at yellow wallpaper and sex assault. I want you to ignore those if you find them. Don't even look at them, because then you'll end up accidentally stealing from them, and it's not your idea, it's somebody else's. I want you to either directly state or imply the importance of the comparison being made between the story and the real world issue. So don't just simply state that a comparison exists. That's not good enough. There needs to be a reason. And that you find all your sources from the college databases. And that this world issue should be a problem brought about by human relationships, such as problems of politics or domestic issues, violence, war, race, culture, etc. Or at least you frame it as such. So yes, cosmetic surgery is a solitary act, but people generally get cosmetic surgery because it's a sensitivity to the judgments of others. So even though... Yeah, it's got to have some degree of controversy to it. But planning, click, and all I do here is I go in, and I've already done one, but I can start new, and I can browse my computer, find it real quick. Pictures I took with my webcam. Pretty funny. Let's see. Oh wait, wrong one. Documents. Images of spam. Attempt to. Have I saved it yet? Let's do this. Let's save it. Save. There we go. Attempt to. Open. Scroll down. Make sure I get my thesis in there. Nope. Remember, all I have to have is the thesis bit, none of the other. But if you really want me to have the green part, you can. Oh, good. It just turns it black and white. That's no big deal. Oh, I want this in the comment box too. So you notice how it's not in the right submission box, in the comment box. And then when I hit submit,
You haven't ever. No, just kidding.
that's fine. It worked. And I'll try to remember to submit, like, I'm going to try to actually post this image of submitting this. And that's what I should see. I should see the sources on the left. I should see the thesis on the right. And that's it. That's all I need submitted. Y'all have a good one.